I'm remembering the terrific revival they have had in Colombia. For many years, Trella Hall, who was a very close friend of mine, ministered in Sogamoso part of the time when she was alone. And they struggled along to just keep their mission going. She had a school in Sogamoso. At that time, there wasn't even an Assembly of God in the capital, in Bogota. She felt that God moved her on, and she went to Spain. And after she was gone, revival gripped Colombia. And now I think there are 20 or 30 churches in Bogota, if I'm not mistaken, and they're all over the country. But I still, she's just an example, but I still say the roots of that work are these people that plugged along. Mrs. Wagner and Trella plugged along when they had so little to show for it. But somebody had to make the foundation, and they did. And we've had the same thing in country after country, where we've had terrific revivals. There has been somebody that plugged through those years and did it with almost seeing no results, but somebody had to lay the foundation.
Give us a little bit more history or background on these countries. Panama, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Brazil.
What do you mean by history?
Well, give us a background as to the missionaries that labored there, that were formative in the beginnings of those revival movements.
Well, I think that El Salvador and Ralph Williams, the two names are synonymous. He went in there because he had a conviction there was a need there, and he and his wife went in when it was most primitive. And but he had a vision of what we call the indigenous principle. And they labored under most trying circumstances. I understand that once he went over into Guatemala and he was escorted home by the police because they didn't like the fact that he was preaching the gospel in this land. Of course, that was very Catholic. The name John Franklin is synonymous with Guatemala. He went into Guatemala when there was nothing but a few little churches. That's the country where I was way back. But there was nothing but a few little churches over the border from El Salvador, hidden up among the hills. I reached many of these towns on horseback, and I must say I'm not the world's original horsewoman, but I made it. I remember one night I was supposed to speak in one of these churches, and after about 12 hours in the saddle, when I got off the horse, I couldn't walk. But I made it. I was able to walk by the time I got to the service that night. But I appreciate the fact, the sacrifice that some of these early missionaries, now you have a lot of churches in Guatemala City. They have very advanced methods of living and other things. But somebody had to plow through the original ground. And these wonderful people did this. I consider that Brother Hodges is synonymous with Nicaragua. He was one of the first ones that went into Nicaragua. And they lived in, and of course, there were others that were also in Nicaragua, but he was one of the first that went into that country.